We're live.
Awesome. Hey everyone, this is Bernadette, Casa,
Hey guys.
Crystal, and Jackie from Practical Law Dissent. We're here today, we've advertised it the last 2 days that we're here to just talk about a few things that are happening around the world at the moment. Things are progressing very fast, and it seems that we feel like our rights in general are just being taken away from us, and that we have to just go with the flow in terms of what the authorities are telling us. And I've been doing a bit of research. Last week, I joined into a Zoom session with Jackie. Kristen and I joined in, and we had like a quick crash course on Magna Carta and this oath, and in terms of what's common law, what's lawful, what's legal, all of this legalese and all of this way that the government has a way of twisting things around, and it's almost like this little mirror that's showing that we have to obey these rules. So we've got Jackie on board here because we thought it was quite a bit of value for us as people to understand that this applies to every single one of us. It doesn't matter what we're fighting today, what we believe is, you know, is harm for us as a person, but we believe that this affects each and every one of us. So, you know, we just here, the three of us as a panel, to discuss some of the issues and discuss the ways that we can be empowered, and then where we can go from there. So, Jackie, would you like to just start with some of the basics of where we go from, or how this all came about?
Well, Magna Carta 1215 is our English and Commonwealth forever binding constitution. It predates Parliament, and it fully protects the people. In fact, all constitutions are taken from the 1215 Magna Carta. They're just deceptively written to allow governments to slowly chip away at our rights and freedoms. Article 61 is the security clause of that forever binding constitution. It protects the people from a treasonous regime. And the governments have been committing treason against the people for centuries, and we were just unaware.
So where do we go from here in terms of the governments and how they're set up at the moment, and laws that are being passed, and whether or not we have a right? This is probably one of the most important questions that we get all the time. Do we have to obey these laws? You know, when we get fined, do we have to pay them, and that kind of stuff? So number one probably is, do we have to obey these laws?
Actually, no. Article 61 actually encourages us to disobey the regime. So because Article 61 is the security clause of our forever binding constitution, it is the highest constitutional law ever written. And once it's been invoked, it is by royal command that everyone living in the kingdom take the oath and stand under Article 61 and reject the treasonous regime. So Article 61 actually encourages us to disobey these acts, statutes, and legislations. So being that Article 61 is the only law in effect right now, it is actually against the law to follow government regulations.
Yeah.
When
So
they put on a mask, it is actually against the law to do so.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
so
why we take the oath of Article 61.
Yeah, okay. So I think I remember you saying in your Zoom conference that, or someone was saying that obeying these laws that actually are put in place by the government is actually being in treason with them, like you're committing treason.
Yes, for aiding and abetting. It's aiding and abetting. Yeah.
Okay. So
it's unlawful to vote. It's unlawful to pay taxes, fines, or fees.
Yep.
All acts, statutes, and legislation since 1911 are null and void.
So what is the government supposed to do? What is the basic law that they should be abiding by?
There is no government.
Oh, I know.
They're criminals.
If they were in place.
They're criminals. They're criminals.
I know that.
Article 61 was invoked, the Queen was deposed, and all governments throughout the Commonwealth were dissolved. There is no government. They're criminal imposters posing as your government. They don't have any authority to make acts, statutes, legislations, or implement rules and regulations.
And we're doing that.
That's why we need
we
to
have
use the process of Article 61 and hold these criminals accountable. If there's no government, who's making this law? Who's making this law? We're paying mobsters to steal from us and tell us what to do.
Yeah. It sounds crazy, doesn't it? I mean, yeah, I watched another documentary last night about the banks, and that just blew my mind in terms of how they're making money out of nothing. So, and the government and the banks are in this, and that they're just looking after each other, and it's us, the people, that are giving them this money. So it is a lot for people to understand, you know, to think that these governments are here as imposters telling us what to do. And the fact that a lot of people are coming out saying, oh, you know, the country, the government, Australia is a corporation, you know, Canada is a corporation. So it's just like a business.
Well, that's
and therefore,
high treason. That's high treason.
Yeah. So where to from here? I guess you were talking about this oath. What does that involve?
Well, because Article 61 is the only law in effect, and it's the highest constitutional law ever written, there's no fence sitting on this issue. You're either obeying the law or you're not. So we have to take this oath. It is a document of intent to obey the law and protect the Constitution. So once we take the oath, our first step is to notify the regime of our lawful standing. And we do that by putting the chief of police and a judge in your area on notice.
Yep.
And that tells them that you are standing lawfully under Article 61. You do not wish to obey the law, and you will not be complying with government demands.
Yeah. So very simple. You take this oath. It's like swearing that you will obey the Article 61, which is the true law. I mean, I'm just trying to explain what you're saying so that if I can understand it, then I guess a lot of our members too will understand that this might be the first time they're hearing it. So once you take that oath, then we're going to, here in our country, make notice to our court and our police that we will not be obeying their law, but abiding by the true constitutional law. And therefore, then we're putting them officially on notice with our first notice that that their laws don't apply to us anymore. Hence the whole, you know, speeding fines, pulling over the side because we're not obeying COVID laws and we're not in the right zone. Correct?
Exactly.
Okay. So this notice, is it a very complicated thing to do? This first notice to the courts and to the police?
They're all the notices are very simple to use. We've got everything already in there. All you need to do is add your name and address and the name and address of the person you're putting on notice, and just fill in the blanks throughout the notice. Sometimes you'll have to use your name. Sometimes you'll have to use their name. Sometimes you'll have to use the corporation name. So when you're putting the chief of police on notice, he's the chief of police for whatever station or police force. So if you just read through the notices carefully, they are very, very easy to use.
Yeah, and they're all within your group. I went through them this morning, and I think I might make a little flow chart and explain the process a little bit better so that they can understand and get through the notices a bit easier, and then attach a link to each notice. So yeah, that sounds pretty easy. I haven't done it yet. I'm still in the process of swearing my oath. So I definitely want to do that. And the oath needs to be signed by 3 witnesses. And it's like in Australia at the moment, I went to go get a document signed, and I just, in Melbourne especially, we got the new lockdowns where we're now back to, you can't go out for, you know, only 4 reasons to go out. and I can't find a JP. So, you know, for all those people telling me, oh, we can't get JPs, the 3 witnesses just have to be anyone, right?
Just anyone, yes. Article 61 is a law for the people. So just regular people, as long as they don't have a criminal record sooner, like less than 10 years old, then they're good.
Okay, so any criminal record over 10 years old, and I'm assuming that's because then they can repeal that because it's based on the law of this fake government rather than a constitution. Okay, I understand that. Okay, so Crystal, you just jump in anytime if you've got any questions that you can see coming up from the members there.
I do have a couple of them actually. When people are asking about when we have to give these papers to the court, who do we give those to in the court? Do we give them to a judge?
When you're doing your lawful standing, you put a judge on notice, yes. Okay. So you send them registered mail. You don't go into a courtroom. We never go into those fake courtrooms because they're not courts of law. They're closed door banking hearings. Okay. So there's no justice in there. The prosecutor, the defense lawyer, the judge, they're all on oath to the bar. And the Bar Association's oath is in direct conflict with the public oath of office. So they are not your friends. So we do not go into that fake courtroom whatsoever. They are committing high treason by using a foreign language known as legalese, and they are using foreign laws known as the Roman Admiral Law of Commerce or the Corpus Juris.
Okay.
So we don't go in there. We get the address and the name of a judge. Usually we do that on the internet, and we send our notices registered mail. Once something is sent through the mail system registered, it becomes a lawful instrument and it cannot be denied in a court of law.
Okay. And someone asked you, if you give the police the notice, does that mean that they have no police force? Like
no
people?
No, that's not it at all. The part about notifying them of your lawful standing and putting the police chief on notice, that is actually for our own protection. It protects us from the police force, but we always want to lobby the Bobby, as we say. We want them to uphold their oaths of office. If you actually look through the process, as David has it laid out, once we're done a process, we're supposed to lodge a formal complaint of treason at the police station. The police are not our enemies. We need them to do their jobs and arrest these criminals.
So basically holding them liable for the corruption within the force, in a sense.
Yes.
Okay, so just to confirm that, we just had a few questions. If we don't answer your question, it means that I'll come back later and I'll send a reply in. But the 10 years limit for the criminal record, we'll explain that later. So, and yeah, if you've got a criminal record within the last 10 years, no, you're not a credible witness. And again, we'll just reply that in a reply. Regarding the magistrate and judge, is it in your local area or is it a specific one that you have to send it to?
Any judge in your area is fine. Notice to agent is notice to principal, and notice to principal is notice to agent. So once you put them on notice, they have a duty to inform everyone above and below their station.
Okay, all right, awesome. So we've answered all those questions. So, okay, so that's us as a person putting, and therefore the other thing that I remember you talking about is this constitutional card. It's almost like a little card that you want us to carry on us at all times. So I've got my kids in the background. If you're hearing it, oh no, I think one of them is going to come through. I'm live on Facebook. Get out. Okay, you know, we're all, I don't know about you, but Crystal and I are mothers, and we do this because we understand how important this is, and we've made this a priority. And our family, are just, understanding that this is important. And this is why I just give this 100% of my time at the moment. I mean, I still care about them, but this is for their future as well.
Exactly. We fight today so they don't have to tomorrow.
Well, I hope there is a future for them. The way the world is traveling at the moment, I seriously don't know how we're going to get through 2020. So anyhow, I've lost my train of thought. They always distract me. What were we talking about?
I think we were on the courts. We had just finished with the courts.
Oh, the constitutional card. That's it.
Yes, the
so I've pulled that in.
Caution card. Once we've
is that what it's called, a constitutional card?
Yes, that's what we call it, the constitutional caution card. We set it up like once the police had to start reading people their rights. That's why they call it reading them their rights, is because when they first had to start reciting the Miranda rights to people, they used to have little cards that they'd carry until they memorized what they were supposed to say when arresting a criminal. So it's kind of based on that idea, because once we've put them on notice and put the police chief on notice, any action they take against us is high treason, and that is still punishable by the gallows throughout the entire Commonwealth, even here in Canada. So we have the constitutional caution card so that if somebody gets pulled over by the police, before the police officer even speaks, you can put him on constitutional caution. Because you've already put his boss on notice, if he takes any action against you once you have recited that card to him, he is committing high treason, and they're not going to risk their lives on that level for their jobs.
Because they're personally responsible. It's
they
not their boss.
Responsible, yes. Yes.
Okay. I've got the constitutional card here. Would you like me to show everyone what it looks like?
Certainly.
Okay, let me just share the screen. So you could just, read that to them or whatever in terms of this is a little card. I'm just going to head out while you just read it. I need to sort out these children.
I must caution you, whereas I stand under Article 61 of Magna Carta 1215, which was invoked in March 2001, according to constitutional protocol. Any attempt to enforce unlawful acts, statutes, or legislative laws on myself will be taken as an act of high treason, for which you will stand trial before a jury of the people, and which still carries the gallows. I urge you to consider Nuremberg. I was just doing my job is no defense, as evidenced at those trials. Ignorance of the law is no excuse, maxim in law. Anything you say or any action taken by you against myself will be used before the jury. To deny constitutional law is sedition at common law and carries a full asset stripping and life in prison. Do you understand?
Awesome. So, yeah, that's pretty powerful card, isn't it?
Very powerful.
And do you think that the police, like here in Australia, will understand that? I mean, are we faced with police that have been so indoctrinated?
Constitutional caution card, and one of our Australians had to use it, and the police officer just walked away. So it's already been tested in Australia. Thanks, Chamberlain.
Awesome. Okay, so that's the whole oath process. That's putting them on notice. Therefore, now we're covered under this constitution, which we are, but it's just making it more official. Now you've got these stages that you've got this either process for no demand, process for demand. Can you just explain what all these notices are for? Why are we sending for a particular person that we want to report for treason? How does it work? Who are we sending them to?
Yes, we're going after them for treason. So we've got it separated into two processes. It's only the first notice that changes. The remaining 4 notices are always the same. So we only separated it into the 2 processes because people were having a hard time understanding which first notice to start with. So if there's demands placed on you for, say, taxes, or you got a speeding ticket or a parking ticket, whatever the case may be, then you would start the process with a notice of conditional acceptance. From there, you would wait 10 days for them to have a chance to reply. And then you would send the notice of default and opportunity to cure. Then you would send the notice of default.
10 days later?
Yes, always 10 days in between. And then you would follow up with the notice of coercion to aid and abet high treason and the notice to stop. Sometimes you don't have to go through the whole process when there's demands on you. If they stop the demands before you get to the 5th notice, then don't serve them anymore.
Okay.
As for the other process, the process for no demands, that's what we use when we want to hold corrupt politicians in Parliament accountable for their crimes. So when you're addressing things like 5G or forced vaccinations, any problem that you feel needs to be addressed, all you do is go onto your government website and you look at what ministers in that cabinet are making the rules for this. So anything for the healthcare, you would go after the healthcare ministers in both state and federal level, or in Canada's case, provincial and federal levels. So education would be education ministers. Children would be children's service ministers. A 5G would be science and technology, as well as the defense minister, because 5G is a military grade weapon. So you just got to look at what the issue is and who is making these decisions. And you go after them using the process for no demands. And you start with the notice of lawful objection and declaration of lawful standing to any Crown agent. That's the same one you'll use for the judge on your lawful standing. So then you go into the default and opportunity to cure, then the notice of default, the notice of coercion to aid and abet high treason, and then the notice to stop.
So I just want to confirm that, because I'll summarize this and I'll let the guys know. So don't panic if you don't understand all these stages. I'm summarizing it for you. So the notice for demand. So we did the first one, which was that lawful objection to the police, and the
that's
court.
For your lawful standing. That's to let them know that you're standing under Article 61.
So that's for lawful standing. So then when you're doing the one for demands on you, so like a speeding fine or all that, we've already done that part. The first notice will be the notice of conditional acceptance?
Yes.
Or you're doing that, okay. But then with the notice for the no demand, so for example, forced vaccinations and all that, the first notice is again a lawful objection.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So that's all right. I'm understanding that. I can explain that to the guys.
We're objecting to whatever
we're objecting. And it's one to that particular person who is the head, head of that department.
Yes.
For the state and federal. So we should be sending 2 of each, one for your state, one for the federal.
Yes.
All right, awesome.
For things like 5G, you might want to go after your local councils too.
Yeah. I mean, when we were doing, for example, I mean, this is general, but in particular 5G, when we were doing the local cease and desist, it's very similar to this. I don't know if you've heard of that. We were doing it to like the landowner. We were doing it to if it was on a building, I'll send it to them because they're obviously part of this. They've approved. We do it to the local council, we'll do it to a minister, and then we also did it to the telecommunications company. So we covered all our bases. So can we do the same process for that?
Yes, you can, but you want to hit them in Parliament too, because that's where the decision making starts. So you want to go after the ministers first.
Yep, so ministers, okay, that's fine. All right, awesome. So you've got this process, you wait 10 days in between each one. When do you normally, regarding some of the questions, I'm seeing them as they're coming along, we'll answer them later, so please don't think that we've forgotten it. With the process, how has it worked in the past? Have you gone all the way up to 5? Has it stopped after, like the one that you posted today in your group? At what stage was that one done? That was for a COVID law where someone was, what's the word? The restrictions in terms of being the lockdowns, right? Yes. So just explain that one.
I think our COVID win only went to the 4th notice, the notice of coercion to aid and abet.
Okay. So that was the last stage, almost, second last stage.
Yeah. Yeah,
okay.
Usually they don't want to go anywhere past that because they're already in hot water.
Yeah. So is it after they've reached stage 5, that notice, that then they're going to be then that information that, like, because we're basically, what we are is we're investigators, yeah? We're now each of us are investigators collecting all this information, then sending it off to the barons.
Yeah. So once we've finished out a case, like hit notice 5, usually the demands stop or we're done, the case is closed, we get it, we just file it in a safe place. But the fact of the matter remains, each and every single person we put on notice will stand trial before a jury of the people at a later date, regardless of how far we got in the process. Notice 1, they're standing trial.
Okay, all right. So I'm going to make sure no one issues a notice to me. You can't issue this to people, can you? It's corporations, isn't it?
Well, you can pretty much put anyone on notice that's not standing under Article 61.
I mean, can my
You're
kids do this?
The law or you're not.
Yeah, I've got to watch it. Can my kids do this to me? Can they put me on notice? I got to watch how much I teach them about the truth in terms of the education system, because it could backfire on me as a parent. What was I going to say? So, Crystal, anything in regards to that? I'm sort of understanding it all. It's probably a lot for our viewers to understand, but hopefully I'm understanding it a bit more, and then I'm confident to then hopefully just give them explanations on what to do. And I've seen it. It's very easy. In terms of, you know, there's lots of issues. There's this whole thing about how do you write your name, you know, the colors, all of that. And I see it's a lot of it, it's still a little bit murky in terms of what is right, what is wrong, what's your legal name, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot we can do. We can go for hours, but I just don't know to what extent.
Well, it's really simple. You just print the notices, fill them in, and you know, some people sign as they normally sign. Some people sign with a colon before their last name. I don't even use my last name. I just sign Jacquie Phoenix, period. I won't use the legal fiction unless absolutely necessary and only under duress. But some people don't bother with ink color. I prefer purple because it's the color of sovereignty. And I remember when they removed the ink color out of our school system and forced us to use black ink only. They told us it was because it didn't fax properly otherwise, but fact of the matter is they wouldn't have taken that knowledge out of the school system if it wasn't important. So I prefer to leave them no wiggle room, so I'm purple all the way, but.
Yeah. And red is the color for the living, is that what it was? And
black purple is the color of sovereignty, red is the living being, blue is the corporate legal fiction, and black is the dead legal fiction.
Yeah, it's amazing how you've got important government documents and they say you must sign in black. Now, just, you know, that's just clicked to me now, where they say it has to be in black. Why black? You know, because dead is the legal fiction, right? That person that they want to tie us to, which on the birth certificate. So
Exactly.
yeah, it all comes, it's like the pieces just, I don't know, it's amazing when you think about it. You have to relearn, wipe the last, I don't know, 20 years of education and try and relearn it and explain it to people. They're thinking you're going against the norm, and it's so hard for people who are, it's so ingrained into them, this education system. So, and sometimes the more educated the person is, the more hard-headed they are in terms of wanting to understand that this is the way it is. So
I get
crystals.
that.
Yeah.
Anything
I do have a
there?
question. Can
Go
you
ahead.
some examples of who you've served these notices to and what has worked and what has come about them?
Well, Canadians will be happy to know that I'm the reason Chrystia Freeland is calling all the shots and not Justin Trudeau. He stepped aside as soon as I served my last treason notice to him. But I'm going after him again too, and I'm going after her this time too. We're also going after the government whip now that I know what his role is all about. So, but yeah, I've had one judge step down. There's been the chief of police. I heard he retired, and he just took that post shortly before I put him on notice, and he's already retired from what I've been told. So they tend to resign quite quickly. I don't have any registration on my truck. I got Article 61 stickers all over it, and I don't register my truck. I refuse to. So
Wow.
I'm dealing with them on that, but they can't seem to rebut our arguments whatsoever. But I am still in the process of dealing with them. But there are major success stories within the group. I've only been under oath for a little over a year now. So yeah, I served Justin Trudeau and Geoff Regan. He was the Speaker of the House at the time. They've got a new speaker now. He's basically been demoted to another cabinet place, so I got to go after him again. We'll get him out of there yet. They just kind of bounce them around for a while, right?
Mhm.
So it's a game of chasing down the criminals with treason notices. But
So I heard you were going to put the Defence Department of Australia on notice. Are you
yes,
still
I
proceeding?
have big plans for Australia.
Awesome.
Going after the military big time. I'm going after everyone in the Defense Department that is high up. The only one I won't be putting on notice right away is the Chief of Defense Staff, because I'm lobbying him to stand behind the people. I want the militaries to back the people. Our military forces, their oath of office is the only public oath of office to contain a treason clause. And the treason clause of our Constitution is in effect. That means the treason clause of their oath of office is in effect. And they need to back the people. So yeah, I'm doing a big campaign against the militaries. And it's because of what is happening in Melbourne, Australia right now. People have been coming to me and telling me what's going on. And these heartbreaking stories, they affect me. I care about people. So these stories affect me and we fight harder. So I've got a plan. I just got to get some documents written up, and we're gonna get this done.
Thank you so much. I'm from Melbourne, and sometimes I feel like, we're on our own. Some of us that are really fighting this. For the last 3 months, I've just dedicated my whole life to educating people and exposing this, because this is very important. We don't have time to waste anymore. And, it just gives me consolation knowing that there's other people out there. And I know all the hard work you're doing, because, you wake up, I'm sure you wake up thinking about this, you go to bed sleeping about it. I wake up, the first thing I do is come straight on my computer and start working, researching. People need to start understanding that they need to stop watching that box and filling their head with rubbish that's been programmed in their head. you know, Netflix, the TV, the news. You need to turn it off, and you need to be watching documentaries. You need to be learning about this. You need to be joining these groups, and you need to take action. You know, don't think about when is the gym going to open so I can get back to my life. There's going to be no gym if we continue the way we're going. So
Exactly.
just, you know, we just need to make it clear that this is a matter of life, I believe. And yeah, we appreciate it, because in Melbourne,
lockdown is only a dry run for Agenda 21. And
yeah,
that's why they're threatening us with a second wave lockdown, is because the people complied too easily, way too easily. And they figure we're ready for enslavement now. So if we don't stand up for our rights now, it's going to be too late.
Yeah, I don't know if I should be saying this, but like, I understand how many people do we need to do this in order for there to be action. Like, you know, me doing this on my own, like, all I say is that we need to be united. The more people that stand up to the police, and we start we're trying to get the police on our side to understand which side they need to be on. It's not a matter of our side. We all should be on the same side. To what extent is, like, you know, calling martial law and then we're all stuffed? You know, we don't even have these rights. I mean, that's just one of the questions someone has asked before. Can we still continue to put them on notice? It doesn't matter what law they call upon?
Yes, always, 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 because Article 61 will remain the only law in effect until the people have redress. So no matter what happens, we have to keep standing up and keep fighting, because treason is a silent war. It's fought behind closed doors with the stroke of a pen. We should have been on the battlefield in 2001 when Article 61 was first invoked. We are 19 years behind in this war, and we need to get our butts in gear and start fighting. Article 61 is the only way for us to pick up the pen and fight back, and we need to do it. There's only two things the government fears: Article 61 and unity of the people. And we are closer to redress than we think we are. The people throughout the Commonwealth are uniting daily, and they're taking the oath, they're serving the documents, they're learning the process. And once everybody is familiar with the process and using it correctly, we can use it to lay the groundwork for lawful building seizures under Article 61. And that's how we get redress. We take our buildings back en masse. It will immediately cripple the regime, because they're using our public buildings to steal money from the people and generate revenue for themselves. If we seize those buildings, all that revenue stops. Think about how much money those courthouses are bringing in per day as a corporation.
We're literally going to take these buildings off them, these town halls, these courthouses, the family law courts, the Parliament House.
Yes.
This is amazing. So
David Robinson was able to seize Glastonbury Town Hall with 7 people.
So 7 people putting through this process, or is that another process?
On site with him.
Okay. And how do they do it? What are they doing?
It starts by laying the groundwork properly. We have to have the right people put on notice to have lawful excuse to take that building. So, like, the notices work in a number of ways. The first thing they do is say, hey, Article 61 has been invoked. I'm standing under the law, and you're aiding and abetting treason. We compel you to stand under Article 61 with the people. We all have a constitutional duty to stand under it. So as soon as you put them on notice, you're compelling them to stand with the people. If they do not, then they are committing a crime, and they will be held accountable, and they will stand trial. So the notices are also evidence of their crimes. but putting the right people on notice gives us lawful excuse to take the buildings. So they're very, very powerful documents.
Okay, so maybe you can just guide us what to do here if you want to let me help take over some buildings in Melbourne. I wouldn't mind some property, to be honest.
Well, the
so
thing we need to do is be using the process correctly throughout the Commonwealth. Once we've got everybody using the process correctly, then we can start looking at the strategy guide and what buildings we want to be going after. The strategy guide that David Robinson gave us is how we seize the buildings.
Okay, all right. A question that I've got is, who enforces this Article 61? So I know we've put them all on notice and, you know, and say, who's going to, it's a very simple question, like who is going to do this whole redress? Who's going to, in terms of them being...
If we seize the buildings en masse,
yeah,
then the police will have no choice but to do their jobs and arrest the criminals that we've put on notice. Then we can compel the Barons Committee under Article 52 of Magna Carta to come back out and help us with redress. So it's the people and the Barons Committee that will bring about redress.
Okay, okay. And the Barons Committee, that's a group of barons who are all the ones that we're sending all this documentation to in terms of all these acts of treason.
The oaths go to the barons, and yes, we take our oath to the Constitution via the barons. They are the ones that invoked Article 61 for the people to use, and the regime did not like that one bit. They were actually, the barons were actually kicked out of both Parliament and the House of Lords because they gave the people a remedy.
Okay, all right. A lot of it.
Question.
Yeah, go ahead. Trying to understand.
If we, so like, let's say when we want to hold people liable and we have to do all this process, can anyone from like a Commonwealth country help out another country? So like, let's say that your movement that you want to do in Australia, can people, you know, in other countries help you out by, you know, including themselves in the movement to help other countries?
Yes, okay. Article 61 applies to the entire Commonwealth. They've been kind of playing with the Commonwealth lists. So it was unclear at first how many countries were able to take the oath. But we recently started looking at the Commonwealth Games, because when they host the Commonwealth Games, they are bound to carry the Commonwealth flag throughout each and every country that can be involved in the Commonwealth Games. So in order to be a part of those games, you have to have a connection to the Commonwealth. So we've got a list of 71 countries that can take the oath and help us fight. And we can help each other in other countries. Canada can help Australia and the UK, just like they can help Canada.
Okay.
We've got some viewers from the USA and they have asked, you know, what do they do?
They can actually take
are they left on
because Article 61, when it's invoked, it declares all treasonous documents null and void. Okay, the Declaration of Independence is actually a treasonous document. All constitutions come from the 1215 Magna Carta, but they are deceptively written to allow the government to strip away your rights and freedoms. So they're treasonous right from the beginning. Only the Magna Carta fully protects the people. So the Declaration of Independence is null and void. So they're back in the Commonwealth, whether they know it or not.
Okay, Jesse, that's your question answered. Hopefully that will give you a little bit of feedback on what to do there. Another question, do the Committee of Barons meet regularly? Or are these retired people? How do they work?
Well, I think they were meeting regularly prior to the invocation of Article 61. Like I said, they were kicked out of both Parliament and the House of Lords for invoking Article 61 for the people to use. So they're pretty much retired now.
They'll come out of retirement when they need to do their job.
Exactly. They're in service to the people. So it's up to us to do our part now.
Yeah. And you have got a list. I know you've got one baron that you get most of the people to send their oaths to, but there is a list in one of your topics. Can we send them to anyone, or have you just worked out the person to send it to? Okay.
Yeah, you can serve it to any one of the barons on that list.
All right. Okay. Anything else that you feel we need to talk about? That was just a very general one. You know, if you'd like to, Jackie, we've got quite a few members here, and we've had a lot of people come in from other areas, because this is something that's applicable to all groups. And we definitely want to proceed with this, and, you know, we can use it for, oh, my internet's unstable. Hopefully it's still working. We could use it for, you know, different causes that are happening around the world at the moment. But hopefully we can get you on board again and maybe just, you know, clarify a few things or give a more detailed live presentation on something specific. So I personally want to thank you for accepting our invitation to come here. And yeah, so Crystal, is there anything else that anyone has asked that Jackie can? Yeah.
Someone did ask if would past unlawful contracts be null and void?
The oath breaks all contracts.
Okay.
Yeah, so yes.
Perfect. I think that's
Anything
it.
else? That's it. Okay. Well, anything else that we've got in there, I'll try and do a summary of this, at least to give you a quick description of what it is, and then we'll put the link for your group in here, your main one, the UK Canada one. I know you've got an Australian one. Have you got more like branches from this main group that you're setting up in individual countries?
New Zealand as well.
Okay. All right. I think we'll wrap it up there.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jackie. I really appreciate that. And you've really helped me personally to understand this process. And I'm definitely going to do this because I'm ready to not obey these laws that they're putting through with COVID in terms of this staying in your zone. This wearing masks is going to sort of come up in the next, I reckon, week or two here in Australia. So in Melbourne specifically. Forced COVID testing, something like that. I believe that we can use this to not comply with that. And then obviously the big one is the forced vaccination with this COVID vaccine, that I know a lot of people do not believe that, you know, it's the thing that's going to stop this virus going around. So I know that a lot of people are definitely asking for help on how they can protect themselves. And I personally believe that this is a really good way to go about it. So I'm here definitely to help with the process, and we can work together.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Okay. Thank you all. Okay. No problem.
Thanks for
Bye.
having me.
Bye.
Bye-bye.